What's up, Clement Falls? This is Dave.
What's up, Klamath Balls? This is Mike, and today we have a special guest. We have Rhonda and Nyseth with us. Thanks for coming to the show, Rhonda.
Thank you for having me.
And your organization is
I work for the Oregon Department of Human Services, Office of Resilience and Emergency Management, and we call ourselves OREM.
ORAM. Okay.
Yep.
And so essentially, your duties are assisting people in emergency situations.
Correct. So my title is called a Social Service Emergency Liaison, and my role is to assist community members when disaster strikes. So we focus on preparedness, and then we do evacuation assistance as well as mass care, so food, water, and shelter for disaster survivors.
Okay. And I know it seems like the water conversation is kind of what drew you to us or caused you to reach out to us. And so, how does that interact with what your position is?
So in 2021, residential wells here in Klamath Falls started going dry, right? And folks did not have access to water in their homes. And as part of and then the county did a emergency declaration due to drought. And under that, when you have a emergency declaration, we're responsible for mass care. So that's food, water, and shelter. And so that water portion of getting water delivery to homeowners became our responsibility.
Okay, okay. And there's a few other organizations, and I'm trying to. I watched some of the videos you provided. So the Klamath and Lake Long-Term Recovery Group, is that underneath what you guys do, or is that a separate
They're a community
organization?
partner.
A community partner. And I'm assuming COAD it is also.
That is community partners organized together to assist folks during times of disaster.
Okay,
So that's community organizations active in disaster.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
no problem.
I was trying to piece it all together, reading through and reading your email. Um, so it seems like the fires and water were two of the main topics for you in the last year or so, or
Yeah, in my
concerns?
work here in Klamath, so I work in Klamath, Lake, Harney, and Grant counties. So a lot of our disasters in those counties have been around either water or wildfire season.
Okay, all right. Um, so one of your videos that you provided to us, there was a gentleman that had it was referred to as a hydrological disaster, water flooding up underneath his house, causing mold, and it was a recurring deal. I don't know.
Oh, like the drainage seepage
Like a creek went dry and it was all going underneath his house, it seemed
yeah.
like from the story I read.
So that's called Merriman Drive, and that is a neighborhood in Klamath, and that neighborhood butts up to the canal. And water has started appearing under those houses, and they're trying to figure out what is the source of the water, how is the water getting there. And there is a leadership in the county has been addressing that. So the emergency manager for Klamath County has been working on that project the most. And then the Klamath Lake Long-Term Recovery Group has been working on assisting those folks and mitigating those issues.
Okay. So it seems like there's an awful lot that falls under the umbrella that you operate under.
Of food, water, and housing, yes.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, whether it's a fire or a flood or lack of water or everything in between, it seems like it affects you.
Yeah, and then my agency as a whole, we also have been charged with cooling and clean air. And so we had the heating, cooling, and clean air dollars. So, like clean air is during wildfire smoke, and then heating and cooling could be warming or cooling shelters during extreme weather events like extreme heat or ice storms. Some of my coworkers in other parts of the state have responded to the ice storms that happened last year up in the Eugene area. So we do a lot of different things that impact those things, as well as Resilience Hub. We're working on building community resiliencies, so we've also been addressing those needs as well.
Okay. I think I might have touched on it back in the summer. Is it through your organization people can apply to get an air conditioner if they meet certain requirements?
They can apply to get an air conditioner, and that's usually ran by OHA or which is Oregon Health Authority,
Yeah, that's
or
right.
your insurance provider under the Oregon Health Plan or Medicare.
Okay.
But our agency helped distribute those devices when they were ready.
Okay. That's a great program.
Yeah, it is a great
Folks
program.
just can't. they either can't afford them, or a lot of times in the summertime here, you can't find them.
Also true.
So I know I'm kind of asking a lot of reading what all was on your email and what all you covered. It kind of threw me for a loop. So I'm sorry if I'm asking a lot of random questions.
It's okay.
She has many hats.
Right, right. And I guess to narrow it down, water was the topic that drew you to coming over here and talking with us. So maybe we'll stay focused on that for today, and
No problem.
because it seems like we could probably spend hours, covering all the all the responsibilities that your organization has.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, there is a lot that we do to support communities during times of disasters. And so it's been an honor to do all this work. And it does seem kind of seasonal depending on what's going on at the time.
But all of it has a significant impact to our community.
Yes.
So that's it's a lot of responsibility, but I imagine it is pretty rewarding.
Yeah, it has been I've got to meet a lot of amazing people. I've got to work with a lot of really great people. And it's amazing how great people are at stepping up for their friends and neighbors when we're impacted by disasters.
So, since the water topic is kind of what made this happen, I guess my question to you is, what did we do, or what was the conversation that led you to reach out to want to be on, or to talk about the water situation with us?
She's
Well,
a fan.
yeah, I watch your guys' podcast.
That's awesome.
And then I know Dave's wife, Shauna,
Okay.
and she's like, I think you should be on my husband's podcast. And so, and obviously, water has been a big topic on your show. You've had a couple folks come in and talk about water, and then it looks like you have a couple more. So there's multiple avenues that water affects our community, and I manage the residential dry well program for the state of Oregon, and I work here in Klamath on addressing dry wells. So our water assistance that we do as an agency is usually for dry wells, impacted water infrastructure. So like if a small town's water system was broken, and we would bring in bottled water to help folks until they could get it back online, or as well as contaminated water. So, for example, like nitrate issues or other contaminants in water that makes it unsafe for people to drink in.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, water to me is the lifeline. Well, it's a lifeline, period. But it's so critical since we are still an agricultural based community. Things are changing and it's growing, but that's still in my opinion, the heartbeat of Klamath Falls in Klamath County is our ag community.
Right.
And to see over the years what's happened to them from the federal level is just it's disgusting. I can't. That's the only word that comes to mind as far as what they've done to our farmers, and especially the broken promises and the contracts and all that have gone away. And so I'm very passionate about that because I love Klamath Falls. I love Klamath County and the area that we live in. And so it's super important to me that we address it, and the community is really aware of the challenges that these people face trying to make a living and grow food for us. So that's where my input, I suppose, or my feelings on it come from.
Yeah, and that battle's gone on for 20 years in our community, right? And I was born and raised in the Klamath Basin as well. I grew up in Merrill. I have a lot of friends that are farmers and ranchers. I'm not personally a farmer or rancher. I left for 15 years. I came back and I didn't understand what happened to the water either. But I felt like it never affected me until my well went dry too. And in 2021, we started having homeowners that started losing their residential wells to their homes. And so when that happened to me, I was like, well, this really stinks, right? Because here I have a house and now I don't have water. So how do you do that? And luckily, I didn't work for OREM at the time, but OREM had started responding to the disaster, and they had brought in water tanks and water delivery service to the Klamath Basin. And they partnered with the city and the county to get water from the county public works, which is city water, and have it delivered to homeowners in the basin. And then there were other partners like BOR was delivering water takes to homeowners, and OWRD, which is our Oregon Water Resources Division, they were tracking all the dry well complaints and then notifying homeowners that there was this resource for them. So when I became one of these homeowners, all of a sudden I was part of the Klamath Water mission. We call our Klamath water a mission, but for most of the basin, it's considered the Klamath water crisis. So that's when I became part of it as well, right? Which I had before. I never felt like I had a part in the water debate of Klamath until that happened to us, and so through that work, I reached out to the county commissioners because at that time the water delivery was supposed to end in a month, and our well went dry in September. They thought they would just have to deliver water for a few months, get us through the agriculture season, and then everything would be fine, because they thought it was because of the pumping of groundwater because the farmers didn't have irrigation water, right? So, but wells just kept going dry, because my well went dry in September, and then you still had wells in October, November, December, January. So I went to the county commissioners. I asked, hey, is there any way you guys can extend this program for people? Because, yeah, my well just went dry in September. I can't get a well driller to come to my house for 10 to 12 months. They're so booked out. Just in 2021, we had over 262 wells go dry.
Wow.
That's a lot of people. And not everybody has the ability to haul their own water. Water's heavy. Water's 8.3 pounds a gallon. And if you put one of those 150-gallon water totes in the back of your truck, you could go down to the fairgrounds and they'd let you use a garden hose. You had to bring your own hose and you could fill up your tote. Well, that's 1,200 pounds of weight in the bed of your pickup, if you have a pickup, right? So how do you move that much water by yourself? It's almost impossible to do that. And if you tried to do a 500-gallon tank, that's 4,000 pounds in the back of your pickup, or on a trailer if you own a trailer that can haul water. So OREM stood up to the plate and said, hey, we'll do this lift. And they contracted to have tanks made. So we have 500-gallon tanks that are specially made for our project. They easily fit in the bed of a pickup when you come pick them up. Once you get it hooked up to your house so that you can have water in your home, then we start weekly water delivery for you.
So you could put it in the back of your pickup empty, bring it home, and then they would come out and fill it once it's on location.
Yeah, and that's how I deliver tanks to people too. If they can't come get their own tank, usually I ask people to meet me to get their tanks because it saves me time. But if they don't have a truck or a trailer or a neighbor that's willing to help them, then I will bring them a water tank.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Since 21, have any of the wells recovered that you know of?
Yeah, most people re-drilled their wells.
Okay.
So I have some data for new wells that were drilled. Like in 2021, 257 new wells had to be drilled that we know of. And then in 2022, 149, and then 2023, 169. But some of those are carryovers, because like my well went dry in 2021, but I couldn't get my well re-drilled until July of 2022.
Okay.
So you would call a well driller and they'd be like, okay, well, I'll put you on my list, but it's going to be 6 months to a year, sorry. And so you had to survive until that time frame. And so we still have people on water delivery that are still waiting for well drillers.
And I recall that I used to deliver fuel to the farmers and ranchers from Crossroad all the way down to Tianesta.
Okay.
And those poor people, I had customers that they were bringing pumps out, buying pumps at Harbor Freight or wherever, and finding tanks where they could, and anything to bring water into their homes. And some of them are families with 2-3 kids, and it was obviously a struggle for them. I felt for them, and that's part of what stroked me up on the water conversation in general. Was I'd say 95% of my customers were ag, and to see the struggles that those people go through, not only to grow food, but to get access to water for their crops, but also just for their homes and to take care of themselves. Farming is not an enviable career path by any means, and kudos to those that do it. But
So the tanks that you delivered, can those be used as like an emergency tank? Or, you keep those at the location then?
So I have a special space at the public works yard where they allow me to store my tanks, and then so when a homeowner needs one, I take it up. They either pick it up or I take it out to them, and then they can hook that tank up to their house. So, for example, when we had our water tank, my husband went and bought a pump and some PVC pipe, and he was able to go through our basement window and hook our tank up to our pressure tank. And then he had a pump that he hot wired to the pressure tank. And so when you turned on the faucet, the pump would activate and it would pump water into the pressure tank and create water pressure. Not everybody has that ability, unfortunately. So some people have to resort to like garden hoses that fill in their pressure tanks or into their water heater, or they have to figure out a way to create that pressure in that system. And some people, unfortunately, still use buckets to get water in their home to fill their sinks and flush their toilet and do that. So the water that we supply is potable. The tanks are designed to maintain potable water. However, we can't guarantee the health of the tank once it's in a homeowner's hands, right? Like if they allow debris to get in there or dirt, they have to maintain the health of their tank. So our goal is just to provide water storage and the ability to maintain water until they can get their well re-drilled and go back to living sustainably on their own.
Okay. So the tanks are still your property. It's just a loan to the consumer, correct?
We give them. We were looking at taking them back, but the process of getting them back and cleaning them and all that was not cost effective. So now we allow the homeowners to keep the tank.
Wow.
We just ask that they do something good with it. Recently, I had a bunch of used tanks that I donated to Watershed Row for some sustainable farming purposes. So so right now they took a bunch of my used and damaged tanks that I had.
Well, and I would think if I was on part of the group that needed that to begin with, even if I re-drilled, I think I might want to hang on to it because you just never know down the road what nature's going to bring.
I still have my tank for that reason, because like a month after we got our well re-drilled and we had water again, our motherboard on our pump fried.
Oh no.
And so like we're like, oh God, not again. And my husband runs down there and sees that, and our pump guy came and fixed it the same day. But like and my husband still has bad dreams about our water going out, right? About our well going dry. And also like for us, our water was also connected to our heat. We had a water circulating heat pump. So when we lost water to our house, we also lost heat, and we lost our water in September. So we didn't have the ability to heat our house.
Oh, man.
So not only did we not have water, we didn't have heat. We had to put in a fireplace in our home to survive the winter. And that fireplace cost me $5,000 on top of what I spent on tanks and pipes and everything to build my water infrastructure to maintain my home. And your insurance doesn't pay you for that. I did manage to win the battle with my insurance company to get my fireplace paid for to maintain the livability of my home. But technically, I shouldn't have probably been living in my home since I didn't have water or heat. So, and that's how I got into this work. Yeah. You see the stress level just raise when you think of your wife sitting in my bedroom was 53 degrees all winter. So that's,
I love sleeping in that stuff.
Yeah, I'm weird that way. Our house is 58 at night in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's one thing if you choose it to be that way, but it's another thing when when you get out of your master shower and it's 53 in your bathroom and you can't change that. That's a challenge.
Back in the shower.
Yeah. And so for us, so when I started this, at first I was just standing up for myself and my community as an advocate, and then OREM hired me after the first of the year, and the first thing they gave me was the water program, right? They're like, okay, dry wells, that's you, and go do that.
So can you take us by this time frame? So September 21, your well went dry. Mm-hmm. Then you got hired. So when did you get hired? When did you talk to the governor? And how did that?
So as I went on this journey, I was asked by the county commissioners to join this Klamath County Well Group meeting as a homeowner. And so I was in that group, and we started talking about how do we assist homeowners with dry wells. And we started talking about doing a reimbursement program and getting funds from the Oregon State Legislature. The governor's regional solutions coordinator person, she was also in that meeting with us, and then the county and the city. And so we all came together. The county did that ask the Oregon State Legislature to get $4 million in homeowner reimbursements for dry wells. So we were doing that. At that time, OREM also hired me, and then I was handed the water program as part of my duties for Klamath County as in my position. And then so we got that money and we developed a grant program with Klamath County grant coordinator, and we did a reimbursement program for up to $40,000 at a 75% reimbursement. So the homeowner was responsible for coming up with 25%. Now your well driller wants to be paid like right now. So usually you had to come up with your own funds, pay your well driller, and then submit your application to the county and be reimbursed your 75%. So that would help. That was a cost savings to a lot of folks.
Yeah, so wells, what, $30,000 these days?
Right.
Give or
Right.
take? Yeah.
And so we did that program. And then the next summer, so that was 2022 when we started that. So the summer of 2022, we had 202 well complaints of folks that needed assistance, whether that was tanks, water support, or both. So then that summer, ran around like crazy, dropping off water tanks. Klamath County Emergency Management staff was helping us. Stacy Todd, who at the time worked for Klamath County, her and I would just drive around and drop off tanks and meet people, verify dry wells. Oregon Water Resources Division staff also was verifying dry wells, doing static water testing, and we were just trying to meet the need of all the people, right? Because when you don't have water, you quickly realize it's not going to be great. It took me 7 days to stop turning on my faucet when I lost water, because it took us 7 days to get water back in our home. And so we started partnering on that. And so we got the money, and then we started building the grant program. The governor come into my house. So we were working on all this stuff, and I got a call one day from the commissioner. Kelly Minty was the commissioner that I worked with the most on this project, and she's been absolutely wonderful and supportive of our homeowners having water in their homes. And so I think she actually texted me and just said, "Hey, can the governor come to your house and see your dry well?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure." And so
Not a request you get every day.
yeah, not every day. And then there's the panic. Like, how you panic when companies coming over, but it's a different level of panic when you have a governor coming to your house, right? So, we're getting ready, and my boss came down, and they show up, and of course OSP talks to you first. And they show up, and I was thinking she was gonna be at my house for like 15 minutes or whatever. But we started the tour, and I was telling her, because most of my other neighbors went dry too. So I was like, well, that house went first, and that house went second, and then that house went third, and we were fourth, and then 5 and 6, and so then I show her our basement where my husband wraps up, where he had everything in there, and we were still living on water tanks at this time. So showing her the infrastructure to maintain water in our home, and we're standing in my basement, and she goes, "I bet you would have rather spent $40,000 taking your kid to college." I'm like, "Yeah, I would have rather spent that money on my kid." You're right. But I had to figure it out, right? And not everybody just has 40 grand sitting around, right? And I'm just using 40 as a number, as just a basic number. So, and then we go to my backyard, and I show her my old well, and and then I bring her in my house, and I show her, my fireplace that I had to put in to maintain heat, and we're talking, and she's asking about my husband's hunting mounts, and my husband's there, and I had provided snacks for everybody because they'd had a long day, and she spent 45 minutes with us just hearing our story and learning about our family. And then so then after that, she's like, "Well, I'm going to try and get you more money." I'm like, "Thanks, Governor." And then as we kept going along with the program and helping more people, and the need was becoming more apparent, because that was in May. Well, what happens in June and July? More lack of water because of drought, right? I mean, we didn't get a big snowpack that year. Farmers got a certain allotment of water for irrigation purposes, but not what they wanted. And then, so we kept having dry wells, but not all these dry wells are in places where we have a lot of farmers pumping water. A lot of them are in La Pine now and other places. And so it's very clearly tied to drought, because we were having dry wells even in the winter time. Right? Like even when there was snow on the ground, and people would be like, "Well, it's been raining and snowing. How can you have dry wells?" I'm like, "Well, there's no water in the aquifer, and water comes from precipitation, and that precipitation fills the aquifer." And I've learned through time that it takes an entire day for an inch of water to move a foot through the ground. So if your well's 100 feet deep, it's going to take 100 days for that precipitation to hit your well. And that doesn't include, the dryness of the dirt and
the absorption and all.
Soil absorb. I've had to learn a lot about hydrology and well. Like, I didn't know anything about my well before it went dry. It was a hole in the ground and water came out of it, right?
Right.
There's a pump down there. And so I've had to learn a lot about that and how that impacts our aquifers. And the aquifers, it's not like you can just open up the ground and ask where the water is and measure it, and you can't see how quickly it fills or how quickly it's being drawn out. And so that impacts a lot. And so we just kept moving along, meeting the need, helping people. And then later we did another ask for more funding, and we got another $5 million from the Oregon State Legislature for that. And then to help dry wells. So now and then not only do we use that money to help dry wells, we also receive that funding to do a water refill station. So now the county and the city are working on developing and building that so that you don't have to go to the fairgrounds and fill up your water tote with a hose. Right? I mean, it's great to do that. At least we have that option, but not everybody's going to have that option. And it's not it took like an hour to fill our water tank with a garden hose, right? So they're working on that. And then, there's administrative costs with that. But to date, I believe we've done 189 grant applications for homeowners with dry wells in Klamath County. So, and that grant application is still open.
Okay.
And there is still funding available for folks. And then I still have about 56 people still on water delivery. Some of those folks have been on for a long time. And so we've started case management where we bring in a social services recovery coordinator. So they reach out to folks, say, hey, what's the barrier to you getting your well done? Are you low income? Are you not able to come up with 25%? Do you not have access to the internet because the application's all online? Those types of questions. And so our Amanda is our social service emergency coordinator or recovery coordinator, and she has been making those contacts with folks. And we just got our first well drilled for a gentleman who he owns his home. He has intellectual disabilities. He works, but he didn't have the 25% or the money to put down. So we've worked with the county. We now have a low-income portion of our grant opportunity for homeowners. So if you qualify as low income because you're living on your Social Security income or your retirement income, you can now receive 100% funding for your dry well. And we just drilled our first one a couple weeks ago.
So if somebody was wanting to apply, they have a dry well and they're not aware of what's going on, how would they go about contacting you to reach out for help?
There's a couple of ways. If you call Oregon Water Resources Division, they'll refer you to me. The Klamath County has a website just for residential dry wells.
Okay.
And you can go on the website and meet and talk to one of the grant managers from the county. Sometimes they'll also give you my information. You could probably Google me and find my phone number, but I'm also happy to provide it here for folks.
I was going to say, is there a phone number that people could reach you at?
Yeah, my number is 541-205-2847. And, I've had people contact me in a lot of different ways, mainly through the county or Oregon Water Resources Division. People get my name. They call me the dry well lady. That's my unofficial title in this program for the community. So, and I'm fine being called the dry well lady. And then, but yeah, people get my name and number in different avenues. There's been a couple news articles on the Herald and News about our program as well.
Okay.
But there's information out there.
Okay.
And just to reiterate a point or a question, so you said 56 people still have water delivery?
Yeah.
And that's for 3 years-ish now?
Yeah, we're rolling into our 4th year now.
That's horrible.
Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough.
You talk about the 7 days of doing the faucet. Think about 3 years of not?
Right.
Or I guess
Well, and
not a stable source, I guess. But
yeah, you've got a source, but I saw the struggles that some folks went through with that. It's just not the same as being connected either to a well or, here we're fortunate enough to be on city water, but I get
Well, and that's the most you should think about it. You do the spigot and the water comes out.
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, part of the issue too was, there was only 4 well drillers in Klamath County when all this happened. And, we've had a total of 512 people have their wells go dry in 4 years.
How many?
512.
Wow.
That we know about. Those are the ones who've asked for help, right? There's a lot of people out there that never asked for help, that just did it on their own, figured it out, did whatever they needed to do to take care of themselves. But That's a lot of work for only 4 people. We had one well driller who came out of retirement and started drilling wells again. And then we had a pump company that went into the well drilling business as well. So now we have like 7 well drillers. And so now, I think they're getting more caught up. When I talk to some of them, they're like, yeah, I'm starting to feel like I'm getting caught up. Let me know if you've got any people that need their well drilled. Feel free to tell people that I'm available. And so, and like in the Lapine area, that's a different set of well drillers up there because they're closer to Bend. And so those homeowners can usually get their well drilled a lot faster.
Well, and it seemed like while this was all going on and people's homes were running out of water, farms were also. And so they were getting a hold of the well drillers to drill wells for ag water too.
Yep.
So it just doubled the load.
Right, and then you also have new construction. There was a huge load put on the well drillers for their work, and it was really hard to get a hold of a well driller. It was really a commitment because they were getting pulled in so many directions as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any data on, like, I know the well drillers recommend they do a survey and, hey, you might want to go down this far. You have any numbers on going above and beyond? And you know what I mean? They recommend, hey, drill 60 feet, but
I know when I got my well out in Bonanza, he hit water at like 325 feet. I was excited. He goes, no, you don't want that water. We're going to keep going.
right, that's what I mean. Yeah,
They ultimately went down to 500 feet and set the pump at 475. So I never had a water issue out there.
Well, my original well was 115 feet, and we drilled down to 220, and then we hit water 5 feet after our old well, so we hit water at 120. So that 5 feet could have made a big difference for us.
Right.
But so we drilled down 100 feet after that.
Yeah.
And our pump is sitting somewhere in the middle too. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I have 100 feet of static water sitting there now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little reassuring.
And then we had it cased. We had it cased almost all the way down too, because a lot of people had their wells collapse also. And that's due to, dryness of the ground and things like that. I'm not a scientist. I've definitely had to learn a lot about science when it comes to water management, and water resources. But yeah, there's so much to learn.
That was a lesson learned for me when we did ours. I did PVC casing initially, and once they were down, before they put the pump in, something rolled through, they said, and collapsed it. And so we ended up having to re-drill it and put a steel casing in. And that's what you get for trying to save a few pennies.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I don't know. I can't really.
I know she had some stuff prepared, or I mean, she can.
Yeah, we'll kind of turn it over to you if that's all right with you.
Well, like I said, now we're working with our social service emergency coordinator or recovery coordinator. That's a new title. We used to call them DCMs, and so I'm still trying to get the name stuck in my head. She's been reaching out to folks, cold calling them to see what barriers they're facing to getting their wells drilled, because unfortunately we can't deliver water forever, right? And you can't sell your home if you don't have access to water either. And so 56 homes in our basin that still don't have access to water. We don't want that for our housing market, our industry, or our people. So trying to get that resolved so those folks can move on to sustainability is our next mission, right? We're done absorbing the big rush of folks. We don't have as many dry wells. We just moved out of drought. And, in Klamath, we officially are considered no drought, which is amazing. And so, and we've definitely not had the dry wells as we've had in the past. So now we're trying to just move those folks to sustainability and get them their wells so that they can move on and be whole again. And that's really the goal with that.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So people have been great. A lot of community partners came to the table. Like I said, Bureau of Reclamation staff used to help us deliver tanks. Gene with KID, he sat me down and explained to me what the water issues of the basin were, because when I lived here, we all had water, and then I came back and there was, this Klamath Basin water crisis, and I was like, what is all this about?
Yeah.
And so he was super kind, and so have the county commissioners have been great. And the homeowners and the neighbors that help the homeowners, there's always a neighbor that's willing to help them haul their tank or hook up their tank. And but it's been a challenge, definitely a big lift, but we're coming out ahead of it now, I think. And I'm really hoping that we can get everybody resolved and move to sustainability.
That's one of the things I've always liked about Klamath County or Klamath, the whole area here is people will reach out to help people. You know, it's a very supportive community in general.
Yeah.
So, and Gene's a great guy. I actually, after my conversation with Ryan, I went and met with Gene, and there's some really, really good people at KID, and we're going to hopefully be working with them some more in the future. So
Yeah. And, it's not one issue that created the Klamath water issue, it's compounding issues. And, before all this, I didn't have much of an opinion about climate change, but I do feel a lot of our issues that are surrounded water with the lack of precipitation is caused by climate change. And it is a real issue for us. And, we don't have winters like we did when we were kids. And that's the biggest indicator of what our climate's looking like for us.
something's changed.
Something's changed.
Yeah. I'm not a climate change denier, although could probably spend the full day debating on the cause of the climate change, but we'll leave that for another day.
Right. I just want people to have water in their homes.
That's that bottom line. That's the most important part.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, was there anything else that you?
No, unless you guys wanted to ask me more questions about what Orem does as a whole, or if you wanted to move into some of the wildfire stuff. I can tell you about responding to Golden Fire, as well as the fire seasons this year of 2024. I don't only work in Klamath, I also work in Lake, Harney, and Grant counties. So this summer I spent a lot of my time up in Burns and John Day during wildfire season, because we had a lot of communities impacted by wildfire.
So I am curious, on top of making sure everybody has water, which seems like a full-time job on its own. So when there's a fire, what hat do you put on to fill that role?
So that hat's the mass care. So once again, food, water, and shelter of disaster survivors. So during evacuations, when we're asking people to leave their homes, we work on evacuation coordination. We assist county emergency managers on planning of evacuations and care of their community, right? And how we address those food, water, and shelter needs. Also, American Red Cross is a big portion of that. So we partner a lot with American Red Cross in supporting them in sheltering operations. So initially, when a fire kicks off and they do evacuations, the American Red Cross opens a shelter. And then we show up to assist them or the county emergency manager as they need to address those issues as well. Okay. So
I'm trying to think of the federal level organization that comes in and disasters, and I'm completely drawing a blank on FEMA. So is there like a threshold level when a disaster occurs where FEMA actually steps in and gets involved with the process?
That's correct. So FEMA, like in Oregon, your disaster has to hit the $15 million threshold. Okay. And in a lot of these rural counties, like especially in Klamath, none of our fires ever hit that level. So like Bootleg, you had 242. Well, 242 got lumped in with all the other 2020 wildfires, so 242 did have some FEMA assistance. But Bootleg Fire, even though it was the second largest fire in the nation, and we had folks in shelter for a month, we never got a FEMA designation for Bootleg. Same with Golden Fire, Van Meter, or Copperfield, because they never hit the damage threshold of 15 million.
And that's probably because the population density in those areas is so low.
Right.
It affects people, and then there's no disregard for anybody as an individual. But I think it's one person per 10 square miles in Eastern Oregon on average. So you just don't have the population density to hit that kind of a financial level.
Like Lake County only has 4,000 people. Harney County, I think, has 7,000 or 8,000 people.
There's only 4,000 in Lake County?
I think so.
Wow. All right.
I could have that number wrong.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that.
Probably not. Now that I think about it,
yeah.
There's not a whole lot outside of Lakeview.
No.
When I was going to ask you what county needs the most attention, but I don't think I have to ask that anymore.
Well, I mean, of the three, we're the highest population.
Right. Out of my 4 counties, Klamath Falls is definitely the highest population. Also, I live here, so my ability to respond here is a lot quicker. And, this year for fire, we only had 2 sheltering responses. We had the Knott fire out the Sprague, and we were just there for a couple hours until people could go back home. And then the Copperfield fire, when that kicked off, we had people in shelter for a couple of days. And, unfortunately, we did lose homes in that fire. We've lost homes due to wildfire every year for the last 5 years in Klamath County, and people don't always know that.
And that's horrible. I can't imagine. I've had friends that lived in Paradise, California, and lost their home down there, lost everything. They've got no memorabilia, nothing from, there's just nothing left. It's wipes out your history, basically. Having said that, though, as fast as that Copperfield fire moved and grew, I can't say enough about the effort that the firefighters put in to protect and save as much as they could. They did a fantastic job.
Yeah, they did. They responded as quickly as they could. Unfortunately, sometimes fire moves too fast. They can't save structures as quickly and as efficiently as they'd like to, but they work really hard to minimize as much damage as they can.
I had friends that were evacuated because of that. And when they got back, there was actually fire trucks on their property, around their home, making sure that, just stand and watch to make sure that things didn't burn. And so kudos to those guys, because it's, I know a few firefighters. I've got a couple family members down in California that seem to actually really enjoy what they do. But at the same time, it's gratifying to them to be able to do what they do. So.
Yeah, and so like when I came to Orem, not only did I get the Klamath Water Mission, I also inherited bootleg fire survivors. So, and we had folks living in hotels at that time because they couldn't live on their property up in the Sycan Estates because it was too cold. And you can't just build a house in a day, right? It takes a long time to rebuild. Houses don't appear magically, and not everybody has the money to rebuild right in the beginning. And if you do or don't have insurance, even when you have insurance, there's barriers to that as well, and insurance doesn't move quickly. And everybody just wants to be back home and be back on their property and live on their land, and there's barriers to doing that sometimes, and sometimes we can assist with those barriers.
So do you have subordinates in these outlying counties that if something happens, they are a first responder, or is it 100%? Does that fall on you to get out there to react to an emergency?
So Orem, we have 32 people in Orem, and we're all over the state. So, I only have my 4 counties. My recovery coordinator that I'm working with for my dry wells, she lives over in Grants Pass. And then the recovery coordinator I have working with some of my fire survivors up in Grant County, he lives like in Cottage Grove. And so a lot of us travel a lot to serve folks. Oh, yeah. And then when we have a response to like a disaster, we have what we're calling our mass care response team that we've developed. And we're still working through that development. But ideally, the focus of that is taking ODHS staff, whether that's self-sufficiency staff, child welfare staff, APD staff, training them to help us respond to these disasters. They learn incident command systems. They learn about the American Red Cross. They learn about sheltering operations. We can push that button and ask those people to come join us and then go to those scenes with us. So I probably have about 6 or 7 mass care response team members that can help me with stuff. One of them went to John Day with me for a week this summer. And then when we were doing our air conditioner deliveries for OHA that you mentioned earlier, I had 5 or 6 of them that were able to help me deliver those air conditioning units to folks in the community.
And so referred to as COAD, Community Organizations Active in Disasters, does that play a role in this as well?
It does. So when I was working on bootleg fire survivors, the state Oregon Emergency Management, they kind of oversee the developments of things like long-term recovery groups and co-eds, and they were trying to get a long-term recovery group started here in Klamath. And so obviously I'm born and raised in Klamath, so I show up to the first meeting, and most of the folks in the meeting, it was a Zoom meeting, and most of them didn't even live in Klamath. There was only one community organization in that group, and they were new to the community. So it wasn't really getting the lift that it needed. So obviously I'm here. I know all the community agencies here in our county. So I started asking those community agencies to start working with that group and kind of help bolster that group. And so, and then Michelle Crane, who is the executive director of the long-term recovery group, we brought her on, and she was able to do that lift and created that group.
Is that a volunteer group or?
It is a volunteer group, but Michelle is paid through grant funds, so she has to raise money for not only disaster response for survivors, but for her own salary as well.
Okay.
So and then there's also the COAD, which is where you have all the community partner agencies like I'm running a blank. It happens. So we have agencies, like we have volunteer agencies that do animal rescue, right? So there's a group of people that have an animal rescue that they go, and then there's the Relief Angels group, and then you have Salvation Army or Class or any of those types of agencies that provide social services. You have a representative from the food bank that are there. So then we kind of train them in incident command, and we come up with processes and procedures on how to respond to disasters. And then Michelle Crane right now is leading that. And so this kind of like the hit the go button of bringing in those partners. And in fact, I believe now Christine Hess with United Way is involved in that as well.
So when you say Michelle has to go out and raise funds to help support the organization, how does she do that? What is she?
So there's a lot of you can always apply for grants. So one of the biggest ones is the Oregon Community Founders Network. They've really helped support that. You can get grants from like the Ford Family Foundation, I believe, has helped support them. I don't know all the grants that she gets, but she's able to apply for grant funds. She did have her first fundraiser this year. So it'd probably help you guys a lot to have her come on here for you next, just to teach you more about how they're doing that response.
I'd love to hear how she does what she does.
Yeah.
Sounds like doing a lot with very little to get it done with.
Yeah. It's doing a lot with very little to get it done with. Yes.
Yeah, for lack of a better way to put it. So.
Yeah. And then also, if I have a major response or I need help, I can pull other folks in my agency down to help me if I need it. So we're always willing to go and help somewhere else too. So.
Okay. Good deal.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like most of the work on these disasters would be at the state level because, I mean, like you said, the $15 million mark, that's
hard to reach out here.
Yeah, that's never going to happen. And I spent a little time in Texas, so we had hurricanes. If that same threshold is there in Texas, I mean, that's easy to hit. But out here...
Yeah, and that includes infrastructure damage as well and other things. But so, for the 2024 wildfires, the governor has asked for FEMA assistance because they can loop some of those disasters together, right? And that's kind of like what they did with the 242 or the 2020 wildfires and the straight line wind event, is they were able to loop all those disasters that happened that weekend into one. So then they
hit that threshold number.
Hit the threshold, yeah.
Gotcha. Did you have anything else that you wanted to?
I don't think so, unless you guys have any more questions.
Dave? Sorry?
No, I'm good. No apparent questions. I just I watched those three videos. They were maybe we could put a comment.
Link the videos to.
Yeah,
I can.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Can we do that? We'll have to.
I would think so.
I should be able to link those.
I'll do a comment. So I'll do a comment on this video.
Okay.
And link the videos that you shared with us.
Yeah, I would save the COAD one until when you have Michelle, or the LTRG one until you have Michelle come on. But
okay. Yeah, the two. I think the Golden Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we'll leave those in the comments.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. All right. Well, Rhonda, thank you for spending some time with us and visiting us here and filling us in more. It's one of the fun things about what we're doing here is learning more and more about what makes our community function, for lack of a better way to put it. And there's everybody I meet that's involved in that. They're all good people. It's always enjoyable to meet them. It's always enjoyable to have a conversation, and which is kind of reassuring. That when something goes haywire, and sooner or later it might. Yesterday we all got earthquake alerts, so I was ready to. I don't know what. I wasn't going to duck under a table, but I was ready to make a move somehow. 'Cause, Yeah, I didn't know where the earthquake was or how strong or anything like that. So it's reassuring for me to know people like you and, like you say, Gene and Ryan and all the people that I've met in doing this show, learning about our community. Um, you're just all great people. So thank you for
Thank you.
that.
Yeah. You know, we all need to take care of our community. It's all our responsibility, right? And everybody has some capacity to help their community one way or another, right? Like right now, mine's water and disasters. Before then, I, worked for child welfare and self-sufficiency programs and did community development work for those programs. And we all have our roles and we all have our knowledge, and it's use it the best way you can to help your community is the best way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all in it together, right?
We're all in it together.
Well, thank you again. Really appreciate you coming on, and we'll let you get back to whatever you got left for your day today.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, gentlemen.
You betcha. Thank you.
You bet.